I'll give you a little rundown on what's happening with government, which is always exciting, and will just cheer you up so much, I know. A little bit about election and a couple of local things with the City of Ottawa. You know, Ron's good friend Jim. I don't know why you're insulting my friend there, Ron.
Not here.
So we have a problem, as you know, in Ontario with debt. We have $260 billion worth of debt, $12 billion worth of deficit, which means we're spending more than we take in every year. We have 500,000 people out of work in this province, and so we're in pretty tough shape. You know, the Liberals have been spending like mad, and we need to reduce our spending. The Drummond report that came out last year had 362 recommendations on what the government had to do to eliminate the deficit and take control of the debt. And if they did all of those things, they would eliminate the deficit in 5 years. Well, they're not doing all of those things. And Mr. Drummond said, if you don't do all of these things, you'll have to find savings somewhere else just to eliminate the deficit in 5 years. That doesn't end the debt. That just means the debt stops growing. We pay $10 billion a year in interest on our debt. And that debt is going to grow for 5 years if they do everything in the Drummond report, which they're not doing. So it's going to be longer than 5 years. I mean, look at what they've done with teachers' union now. They passed a law for a 2-year wage freeze. They've already repealed that law. The contract is frozen for 2 years for sure. But they have a new leader in Kathleen Wynne, and she's backpedaling like crazy to make friends with the unions because we might have an election soon. So there's no will to freeze the wages for all the other private sector groups, being the police, the firemen, nurses, and all the public service employees. That's what we plan to do if we form government as Conservatives, because that's what we have to do if we're going to just eliminate that deficit. That's all that will do. There's all kinds of other things we can do, and we would do as Conservatives, or any government should do, to reduce spending. It's not hard. If we eliminate the Green Energy Act, that'll be tens of billions of dollars. I heard Randy say one time a year or two ago, $83 billion is what it would cost in 20 years. Nobody really knows. It depends how many panels are built or how many towers are built. But that's huge saving right away. Eliminating the all-day kindergarten would save $1.5 billion. The wage freeze for 2 years of the public sector people would save $2 billion. And there's all the scandals. So it was $2 billion on e-health. Presto is about $1 billion, 700 million, whatever number you want to put on it. We have the gas plants closures, which is over $1 billion. Like you have almost $6 to $8 billion in wasted money there. So there's all kinds of money that we can save and put to better use. We don't have to be firing nurses. We don't have to be cutting health care. We can do it smarter. We can get rid of the administration of the LINs and the CCACs, put the money into front page. And we could go on and on about all the savings that could be had. Presto, which happened here, I'll talk on that for a second because that's a scandal I got involved with a little bit and know something about. It never got much press, especially in Toronto. We revved it up a little bit here in Ottawa with CFRA. Thanks, Nick. I think you and I chatted about it a couple of times on your show. Lowell Green did, Rob Snow. And it's an easy one to highlight. And the reason we didn't spend much time on it in Toronto, there was just too many scandals to follow up on. We were just too busy addressing scandals. The other one I didn't mention was Orange, the Orange Air ambulances. And you've heard a lot about that one, because we did spend a pile of time talking about that as a very public issue. And that one is still going to, the Liberals are going to be held to task for that one, because that is going to committee, and it's going to take some time, but there will be a day of reckoning, and it will come out that it was done for political gain. They closed the Mississauga gas plant 2 weeks before the election, last election, to gain seats. So they won all 5 Mississauga seats. So it worked at a cost of $1.3 billion to the taxpayer. I mean, that's not just wasteful, that's corrupt. And so people will be held to task for that. It was a political decision. Politicians made that decision. That's Mr. McGinty. Mrs. Wynne was part of that. She was part of the political team, of course. Minister of Energy, Minister of Finance, all those people have got to be held to account, and they will be. So there will be a day of reckoning on that. So the spending controls can be done. Healthcare doesn't have to be trimmed and pared. I mean, if we got to fire people, surely there's other ministries that don't do things nearly as important as healthcare that we could trim people out of, and healthcare would never be touched. Same with education. We need teachers, so we can't be hurting the teachers. We can't be eliminating teachers. We have to keep them. Possibly administration in the Department of Education could be trimmed, but not the teachers. And those are the two main priorities, and really I think we have to all regard them as sacred cows. That's not liberal, that's not conservative, that's just what the people of Ontario need and want, and we have to do that. That's the job of government. Now, what's not the job of government? All kinds of things we do. Should we sell the Liquor Control Board?
No. Yes.
Yes.
We should.
Actually, no.
You talk later. Remember, you do work in our office once in a while. You want your paycheck, okay?
I can tell you the constitutionality of it.
The constitutionality of your paycheck? That's not.
That too.
Labor Board.
Right, that's the Labor Board. The Lottery and Gaming Commission. Why does government need to own casinos or slots? We don't need it. We're not saying they shouldn't be there. That's a question for another day that I think is an interesting question. But just the ownership of it. There's 9,000 employees for the Lottery and Gaming Commission, or the Lottery and Gaming Corporation, sorry. So we could sell that. I mean, people that deal cards and do maintenance and cleaning of buildings, that's not high-tech work. Any company could do that. It doesn't have to be government, and it shouldn't be government. And this is where the libertarian part of me comes out. Government should only be doing what only government can do. And that's actually not very many things. Why would we not put more private money into healthcare? I think we have. We do already have about 25% private healthcare, and we should do more. I was at the Manning Convention last week and heard a really interesting discussion on healthcare and how to make it better. And it was Quebec speakers. There was 3 or 4 people from Quebec, Montreal Economic Institute, a reporter who was very knowledgeable, a lady who has some very high level of administration, management, and healthcare, all from Quebec. They say in Quebec, 65% of the people in Quebec are ready for some private money to be going to healthcare, and maybe even a lot. We're saying the state would still pay for healthcare, so it's still universal healthcare, but private money could come in to do things like building hospitals, which are very expensive. Because Quebec's more broke than Ontario. I mean, we're in terrible shape and they're worse. And all governments have serious debt. Even Alberta is heading down that road now, which is really too bad to see. They kind of got carried away and mismanaged their money and spent too much as well. So I think we have to, Europe has adjusted to the idea that there's a place for private money. They do a much better job of delivering health care. So if you're sick or injured and you go to the hospital, we all hear of horrible lineups and waiting times at our hospitals now. In Switzerland, Germany, and France, nowhere do you wait more than an hour, maybe half an hour. They have managed the system so that those wait times are gone. So the service to patients is much better. 33% of the hospitals in Germany and France are privately built and owned. It's still state paid for health care, but it's private money in there and it's for profit. I mean, there has to be a return on investment for these people. Taiwan has done an excellent job of managing their healthcare system. Their cost on a per capita basis is about half of what ours is. And they have a lot of private money in their system. And they have a smart card system of paying for healthcare, which is just a credit card, which would have all your information on it as far as ailments, doctors, medications, billings. You know, billing and price lists is very important for managing healthcare. We had an interesting guy, a man and his wife, come into my office the last few months. He was director of Public Works Canada, so that's a pretty high-level management job of a very large organization. And so he came up with this idea of 2 simple things, that one of the things we can do to better manage Ontario's healthcare, to make it more affordable, to make it more accountable. He says we need, number 1, a price list. So every treatment or ailment, whether it's heart attack, pneumonia, broken leg, there would be a price tag put on it. You'd have, the second part would be a smart card or a credit card. So that would be for billing purposes. So it'd have your name on it, it'd have your doctor's name on it, and what procedure was done. And so it's a proper accounting for every patient, every doctor, and every procedure with a price tag for every treatment or ailment that was after. We have to now try to sell that to our PC party and to the government. But we had a good day on Friday in my riding. My riding's Carleton-Mississippi Mills, by the way, for those of you who don't know, which is Canada, Stittsville area, and the rural area around it. So Christine Elliott, who is deputy leader of the PC Party of Ontario, and who is health critic for the PC Party, and a very bright lady. So I asked her to come to my riding at some time to go and see the Almont Hospital. Because I had a tour, I've had 3 tours of that hospital. They do an amazingly good job of managing a small hospital in a small town very successfully, very effectively, and they have their long-term care facility attached to their hospital, and they have their family health team there with 14 doctors. And they've got some great managers on their board of directors and their administrative people. Their long-term care facility makes money. It's profitable, and that's publicly owned. That's quite an achievement. These people are doing a great job. So I brought Christine to see it, and she was very, very impressed. They gave her a tour of it, and so I'm hoping from that we might take away from that. This is an example of how to do it right in small town Ontario, maybe even big town Ontario. Very efficient use of resources, and of course money is always a scarce one. In the afternoon we had a meeting at my office with about 15 people, and we talked about autism, primarily autism, a little bit of other things. One of the things that impresses me most with my new job, I've only been at this for 18 months, so I'm learning a lot, but people come to our office and ask for help. Sometimes it's frivolous, silly things, mostly not, mostly sincere problems where they just don't know where to go. Sometimes it's as simple as my hydro bill is twice as high as it should be. Can you help me? And often we do. It's just a call to somebody with hydro, and that gets fixed. But what really impresses me and makes me, and kind of hits you right here, and I think it would for all of you too, is the families that have autistic children. And what a terrible situation that is, because this is a sick person that's never going to get any better. They might live to be 75 years old, but they're never going to change. Depending on the degree of autism they have, they might function a little bit, or not at all. And the ones that have the severest level of autism basically need constant care 24 hours a day for the rest of their life. It's expensive. Government provides them precious little help. It can be up to $70,000 a year per child, and not every family can afford that. Most families cannot. Some have, for poor people, it just means the kid gets no help at all. And with autism, it's very important with the treatments that are available to do it before the age of 6 years of age, because their minds are forming. And if you give them these treatments or trainings, and I'm not an expert on it, but if you do it early, you can affect a child's brain so that they're better able to function in society for the rest of their life. But early is key, and if the money's not there, and government is doing a terrible job, because there's a waiting line to take the test to see if you qualify for the program, and then you wait another 2 years for the program. And then the program is very limited and not very user-friendly. In other words, acknowledging that the parents probably have a job, because they got to pay $60,000 for a kid that's in trouble. And anyways, it's terribly, terribly badly managed. The private sector is actually stepping up and doing a pretty good job with private I'll use the term daycare, but care facilities, with people generally that have pretty good knowledge and pretty good expertise on how to take care of autistic kids. And it gives the parents a break, because then they can go and work, and then when they come home, of course, they take their kid home. One family from Stittsville, about 50 years old, father was an engineer, temporarily unemployed, so he's without a paycheck for now. His wife's an optician, so she probably has reasonable income. They have 2 boys. 21-year-old has severe autism, so he's 24-hour, 7 days a week, all year long, forever. Their second boy, the one that's in good shape, is bipolar. Now, and they came in and she was nearly crying. And you can just imagine what their life is like. They have no life. You know, there's no celebrations there. There's no graduations. There's no weddings, no grandchildren. There's no good news. It's just all bad news. The oldest kid gets violent, and the father's strong enough that he can wrestle him to the ground. When he's not there, his wife has to do it. And she has a tough time, so she gets beaten up. The kid will ram his head through the wall, the gyprock wall, or his fist, so now the walls are plywood, because they can't afford to keep it gyprock all the time. We're not helping those people. As a society, we have a moral obligation to help those that can't help themselves. And we're not doing that. You know, we spend money on other things where lobby groups and healthy people and unions and whatever, you know, we can go and lobby and speak up for ourselves. Like we're doing here today. We're not winning all the battles, but we're able to fight. Right, Ron? You're able to go and fight for your industry. I mean, I do it where I am. We're all doing that. You're here today fighting for your interest. But families that have autistic kids don't have the resources, they don't have the time, and so they're quiet and they fall through the cracks and nobody ever sees them, nobody hears them, because they don't bring their kids to events like this on St. Patrick's Day, because they can't. And they don't come because they can't, because they got to be at home with their kids. So we have to do better to help people like that. Now that sounds like a lot of socialism, and it is, but it's the basic. It's something we as a moral society have to do, and I think we have to change our priorities to look after those people like that. And there's other areas too that are similar. Mental health is another one, but we have to have the money. So, like I say to people, a socialist has to be a good conservative because he's the only one that will have enough money to pay for the program. And we need to get more and more private sector involved in that kind of thing. But we got, you know, here we are having things like the Green Energy Act, all-day kindergarten, and all this wasteful spending, and people like that fall through the cracks and they suffer. And I think that's a job as a society we need to take on and make that a priority. Yeah, Tammy.
I just want to say, Jack, I'm sorry to change a little bit, but that business, what's killing me is this business of casinos. They think they're going to make all kinds of money and put millions and millions into these casinos, one in Ottawa, one in Toronto. People don't have any money, so where the hell are they going to be going in there and playing casino, all these slot machines? That I don't get their logic. Can you explain a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, actually, I can't explain it. Like, so Tammy's question is, are the casinos actually going to generate a whole lot of money? Like, if we build another one in Ottawa, are they not just going to take half the money of the one in Gatineau? And I suspect probably so. There'll be very little increase of funds.
So what they'll do is they'll redirect those gamblers that go to Mexico and Quebec will come to Ontario. They'll maybe keep some of our own gambling.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to talk about Jim Watson, and we want to cheer it up a little bit, right?
Yes.
Well, he's my good friend. You know that.
Actually, one more issue on casinos. Will they actually go to a casino, for example, at the Carleton Raceway, rather than the one in Hull?
What's the question?
Will the casino even be successful in Ontario?
No way.
I was 19 years in that business. I got in well before slots. I was part of that whole process. And I can't believe what's happening. That was a pretty good model. We kept that 60,000 basically unemployable people, their grooms and all that. It was a nice, neat little deal for them. And I don't know what, Jack, I don't know why they would throw a kink into that. I don't get it. One question I have for Jack, though. Jack, you had said that you are just about to hold Wynne and all the officials that to account on the
Gas plant closure.
gas plant. What, in your opinion, knowing what you know, what kind of sanctions could a Wynne and a Sousa expect when they're found guilty of what we are charged? What do you expect to happen?
So what would be the result of holding the Liberals' feet to the fire if we're doing something corrupt like closing the gas plants?
Nothing.
I expect the money's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't get the money back because they had to pay it out in penalties and fines. TransCanada Pipelines turned down $720 million for the closure of I think the Mississauga gas plant. Turned that down. That wasn't enough. So the money's going to the private sector for breaking contracts, all that kind of stuff. All we could do is make an example of politicians who do corrupt things and, well, more corrupt than wasteful. Being wasteful is just stupid. I'm not sure if that's a crime. Maybe if you're a liberal.
Yeah, but you couldn't get rid of them again.
But you know, they could end up being taken to court, perhaps. And Yannick,
Two things, if I can just throw this into the mix. First of all, dealing with casinos, that's a symptom. It's not a solution.
Correct.
The symptom is the province is broke. And we're looking for every possible revenue stream they can dream up, even if from an accounting point of view, from a common sense, logic, and reason point of view, it makes no sense. There's only so much money in the economy for gaming, and they've already tapped it out. Now they're desperate, so they're trying to woo people from out of the country, like Las Vegas, to come up here and run a casino. The problem is the people in Las Vegas came up and said, this place sucks for a casino, and they went back home. So there's not going to be any casino in Ottawa. Jim Watson's already starting to backpedal. So, and the other thing is, Jack, I want to ask you this. When we're talking about consequences for the Liberals, for the last while, I've been hammering the Lieutenant Governor. And Liz can set me straight on this if I'm wrong. But why is it that the Lieutenant Governor has not been petitioned to shut these clowns down? That's his job. If the Parliament is acting in a way that brings disrepute to the Crown, then the Lieutenant Governor's job is to dissolve Parliament and either ask you and the NDP to run the government or send us back to the polls. Are the Tories going to Mr. Onley and saying, what's up, dude? And if that doesn't work, why not the Governor General who appoints the Lieutenant Governor in the first place? We got to stop these guys somehow, and if that's the only method left, let's use it.
okay.
Here, here.
To answer your question, Nick, the PC party at this point has not got a plan to go to the Lieutenant Governor.
Why? Why?
Just let them finish it.
Well, I mean, it's not like we are doing something. We're not doing that. I'm not saying we would never do that. We're hoping that an election will come sooner rather than later, and we're hoping that we would win an election, and then we'll do the best we can to provide good government.
How many elections do we need?
One more, right, Jack? One more. Bring him in.
One more question.
Yeah.
French Languages Services Act. When is it going to be appealed? Repealed?
Yeah.
92.7. We want that gone.
I know. And I know I've known that for a long time because Beth and Kim communicate with me often, directly, and completely. I understand. You don't have to sell me. But,
Jack, in Quebec, we've seen the example of the RCMP cracking down on corruption of public officials, elected officials, and private corporations involved in that. What would it take for that to happen in Ontario? Do we as the citizens step forward and make complaints to the RCMP about what has happened with the Liberal Party and, for example, the gas plant? Is that what we need to do?
we can do that, but Diane, the money is gone, so that's not, we're not going to be able to get that.
We can find the money somewhere behind bars.
We have,
That was they did,
it's going to committee it's going to committee to be studied. It was in committee before we were prorogued. We started that process over again, so that delayed everything. So committee is 9 MPPs from all three parties, 4 Liberals, 3 Conservatives, 2 NDP, who study the problem and define and come up with a recommendation as to what's wrong. We're also going to have a judicial review, which has more teeth. That's a very formal legal process. So the heat is definitely being turned up on the gas plant closures and what the Liberals did. Well, we all know why they did it and what they did, but formally they're going to be taken to task and there will be a consequence. I can't tell you what that will be, but it's not going to be very nice for Liberals, that's for sure.
But is that separate from an RCMP investigation?
Well, we haven't.
What's wrong with bringing in the RCMP?
Well, nothing. Well, we haven't done that yet.
Why not? It sounds easier than the rest.
It's up to you.
Well, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to talk about your friend. So, Jim
Watson.
I was going to say Jim Watson's my friend, but you know I'd be lying to you. So, we had a little, where's the Dave? Is he in here? He's hiding back in the corner. Hey, Dave, come on out here, everybody can see you. So, it's all his fault. So, this is a day all you mind who does a great job. He's founding president of the Ottawa Taxpayers Advocacy Group, which is a ratepayers watchdog group for the over Ottawa City Council. He does an amazing job of crunching numbers and showing publicly through the media that Ottawa City Council too often spends too much money and is wasteful, etc., etc., etc. So, and of course, Nick, I think you know this guy pretty well.
We met once.
Yeah, so we make CFRA is a great to us, and Dave's made great use of you and your colleagues and putting it in the public realm. So it's embarrassing for the city when a day does this. A day works 2 days a week in our office, so he works with me, and that's a pleasure. So Jim Watson phoned me up in about 3 months after I got elected, so I was still, not very confident in my new job. My confidence level was a wee bit low in learning all the new stuff. And he says, we have a human resources problem. That'd be that guy. And I want to talk to you about that. He says, you can't have somebody working for government, which is my office, and criticizing somebody else in government, which is his office. And I thought, well, why could we not do that? And of course you can. And then he goes on to say, Jack, this is going to make it difficult for you and I to work together. Well, we don't work together anyway, so I don't know how it could get any worse. And he says, my staffers tell me we should call the integrity commissioner on me. So I phoned the integrity commissioner and said, well, geez, am I doing anything wrong? And turns out not, and it turns out today has the right to do whatever he wants in his own time, which we're doing. And he wasn't using our office. So I called Jim back, like I said I would, but he never returned my message, so that was that. Well, about 3 months later, I guess he must have done something else because you pissed him off again today. So Jim Watson phones up Tim Hudak's office, the leader's office, and speaks to his chief of staff and says, I may have to sue Jack MacLaren. By this time, I was getting a little more confident about what we were doing and what I could do, and that didn't bother me too much. Needless to say, he doesn't return my phone calls, and there are quite a few of the other councillors don't either, and I could go on about the city for a long, long time. So he's not really my friend. I was just told your leg there, Ron. And probably that's enough for now, unless anybody has a question, which I do. Yeah.
And I do as well.
Yeah.
With all due respect, Jack, over the years, as far as the language thing goes, all of us that are here that have been doing this for 40 years, we've had enough of this speak that in the next election it's going to happen. We petitioned Michael Harris. For 8 years we petitioned Mike Harris's government to do something about the FLSA, and all we got was refusals. They wouldn't speak with us, they wouldn't talk to us. So in our minds, it doesn't matter which party it is. None of us matter. And the fact of the matter is, Jack, when that law was passed, out of 125 members in the House, 55 of them voted for it, while the 70 others that we elected to represent us decided instead of voting against it, they left the House and walked out, allowing the 55 to pass the act that none of us want. So with all due respect, Jack, we need more than the kind of rhetoric we just heard. We need some clarification that the English-speaking majority is going to get equivalent in this province.
Jack, one voice and a friend.
I hear you. I agree.
It's been 40 years, Jack.
Well,
40 years, we can't have another election. We can't say it's going to be the next time. All our kids are leaving. I know 15 kids in this area that have gone because they're saying, I can't raise a family here because we're not French. We're not French enough. I know kids that have tried here speaking French. They get stuff thrown at them because they speak it with an English accent. It's not good enough. None of it is good enough. So when you talk about families, when you talk about keeping families together, language and communication helps keep a family together. But what's happening here is you're driving all our kids away to get jobs out west, not only for economic reasons, but because of language apartheid. And we've had enough.
Jack, if I could add one thing to that. In about 5 years period in Ontario, 100,000 people have left Ontario, 50,000 of them have been our young people. Virtually every public sector, taxpayer-funded social engineering program is unsustainable.
Okay, let me jump in.
It can't be covered.
We all know this stuff, and I share your frustration. But yelling at the opposition, and I agree that under Mike Harris things could have been changed, they weren't. I grant you that. But Jack's not in power. You should be yelling at the Liberals because they're the ones with the power, with the MVP, who could do what you want. So I'm just trying.
But Nick, they don't listen to us. You know that.
But just Jack being here is important.
Venting your anger at a guy who can't do anything until he has the reins of power in his hands. Like if Jack says, "I'll repeal it," and then he gets elected and he doesn't, then you have every right to do what you just did. Because, now I'm not saying Jack ever would, but then the politician has lied to you, broken trust, broken faith. And how we deal with that is we fire the bastards who do that.
Fire the bastards!
So why didn't we get 3 elections in a row? It's our own damn fault. Royally here, but it's our own damn fault that we get this stuff because the people in Ontario keep putting the same buggers back in office. Don't blame Jack.
No, I don't blame Jack. Listen, I certainly don't blame Jack. What frustrates us, Nick, is all these years of when the opposition did get in. When Mike Harris came in and made all those promises, he was our guy. The only guy who did what he said he was going to do. And we all loved him for that. He got creamed by the left and he totally disregarded us for 8 years.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I share your frustration. But
where do we go?
Yeah, just a minute.
Well,
Just a minute. I expect the Conservatives to win the next election, so start yelling at them now.
I totally respect what you're doing. We need people that have the courage to get elected, to run for politics. We need people like that.
What I would say to you, I'm going to just say a couple words quick and then it's your question. It is a democracy. We all have the ability to participate. At the Landowners Association, which I'm a very proud member of, and I think most of you know I was past president, and of course Tom Black's here now. Best president we've ever had, by the way. And the most valuable resource group to me that exists. And thank you, Tom, for everything Landowners does. And that will never change. I mean, my attitude towards the landowners and the value of the landowners will never change. So we very aggressively worked hard to make a difference, and we have, but it's slow, right? Tom, when you're a lobby group, an advocacy group, you are on the outside trying to influence the guys that get elected, who often don't have a whole lot of power. The parties are parties, and decisions are made by the party. And I'm still trying to figure out what the hell that is some days, but so that is a limiting factor. However, you know, Randy Hillier got elected 5 years ago. I got elected about 1.5 years ago. You folks can do that too. You know, every 4 years, a chance to run for office. And you
How can we when this PC party of Ontario keeps handpicking candidates?
What's that?
That they promised they would never do after the last election is handpick candidates in this area.
Shirley, there's always a way. If you don't like what you got, just make a change.
Well, then talk to Richard Ciano then. That's why I've withdrawn from this party.
I have, and I've talked to Hudak as well. Yeah.
Just a quick one first on the democracy. Democracy in Canada exists every 4 years. When they come to us and say, vote for us. During the next 4 years, party politics takes over, and this is where this man's frustration comes in. Because you forget who put you there.
All right.
And you, hang on, let me finish. You say one thing, which might change once you get to office because the party says, well, we really can't. Prime example of that was John Nunziata when he stood up against the gun legislation, and the Liberals lost his seat in Parliament, or with the party, ended up as an independent. Because he stood up for his community, His party said, screw you, you didn't follow us, and that's what happened to him. He lost his job.
Yep.
For you, fighting the opposition, I went to Dalton over the language laws, over the FLSA. I brought it to his attention because of what happened in Russell-on-Bron. I spent 28 years with the military. I fight for your freedom, or I did, and I still do. The smallest minority is one, not a group, one. Human rights takes over everyone. As an individual, we all have human rights. Access to our language is one of them. As soon as you lose that, you lose everything else. Once you lose your freedom of speech, the rest is gone. You can't fight. Let me finish, please. So I went to Dalton over his FLSA and said, how are you allowing a mayor to pass a law? He said, Section 14. So I pulled it. I read it. So I read the whole thing and I fired it back at him. And I said, Section 14 says that a mayor and a council can pass any legislation related to municipal services. Tim Hortons Donuts is not a municipal service. So he fired back an email from his secretary. We will no longer be discussing this.
What you did was wasted your time talking to a fence post.
But still, the fact of bringing the issue up, it got one response. We will no longer be talking about this.
Jack, can I resolve all this?
So what I'm trying to say,
There's your dictatorship.
I agree with you.
Everybody, my name is Liz.
I'll buy your book.
I've been quiet long enough. When Bob Ray got into power, I already see this. Bob Ray actually passed legislation that they cannot remove the bureaucrats when the new parties get in. So we are still dealing with NDP bureaucrats who are hiring their own. This is what we are dealing with. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit about legislation and how this all works. The bureaucrats build the legislation. They do Reader's Digest version. They send it through to the dweebs in the parties. The dweebs in the parties take that Reader's Digest version, make it a little smaller Reader's Digest version. They take it to the caucus, and this man here has to make a decision on non-information. I have been deeply researching this situation, not only on the municipal level, the provincial level, and the federal level. This is a Bob Ray initiative. It is a socialist initiative, and it will continue until we actually get a party, a majority party in there that has, as you said earlier, the cojones to get rid of the bureaucrats.